You're watching TAG TV. You're watching TAG TV.
Hello viewers, I am your host Sonaka Mendiratta with another episode of South Asia Focus. Let's begin the show with the two-day Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit held in the Chinese city of Qingdao. The grouping that aims and endeavors to strengthen the relation between the member states through an enhanced cooperation in the fields of trade, economics and politics pushed for a better connectivity among the member states and resolved for a concerted effort in fighting the scourge of terrorism that has largely affected the region of South Asia in recent times. A report.
Member states, observers and dialogue partners of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, an 8-member Eurasian bloc which is increasingly being dubbed as one of the most successful groupings in recent times in the global discourse, met for the 18th time in the Chinese city of Qingdao to reinforce the multilateral agenda of a robust trade, wider economic engagements and successful diplomacy among member states. Members signed the Qingdao Declaration and other documents covering fields of security, economic cooperation and people-to-people exchanges. Besides the Qingdao Declaration, more than 10 documents, including a 5-year action plan for implementing the Treaty on Long-Term Good Neighborliness, Friendship and Cooperation of the SCO member states, the joint statement of the heads of member states of the SCO on promoting trade facilitation, the program on cooperation of the SCO member states in countering terrorism, separatism and extremism from 2019 to 2021 were also signed by the leaders. India received a diplomatic shot in the arm when the issue of state-sponsored extremism and terrorism, which it has been a victim of, was given a place in the SCO agenda and widely discussed during the summit.
上海精神在国际上获得了广泛的认同和支持。在上海精神的引领下，本组织不仅在安全、经济、人文等合作领域取得丰硕的成果，在机制建设方面也迈出了历史性步伐。如今，上海合作组织拥有8个成员国、4个观察员国、6个对话伙伴，是维护地区安全、促进共同发展、完善全球治理的重要力量。让我们以青岛峰会为新的起点，高扬上海精神的风帆，齐心协力，乘风破浪，共同开启上海合作组织发展新征程。现在我提议，大家共同举杯，为青岛峰会圆满成功，为各国发展繁荣、人民幸福安康。
Leaders called for a better role for the SCO Afghanistan Contact Group and asserted that sustained and concerted efforts to make Afghanistan more secure and peaceful was a need of the hour.
अफगानिस्तान की स्थिति हमारे साझा क्षेत्र में अतिवाद और आतंकवाद के कुपरिणामों का एक दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण उदाहरण है। मैं आशा करता हूं कि राष्ट्रपति गनी ने जिस भावना से शांति के लिए एक बार फिर से साहसिक कदम उठाए हैं, उस भावना का सम्मान सभी पक्ष करेंगे। हम सबकी यह जिम्मेदारी है कि विगत में जिन कारणों से अफगानिस्तान की एकता, अखंडता, संप्रभुता, विविधता और लोकतंत्र पर आंच आई है, उन्हें न दोहराया जाए। एससीओ के तत्वाधान में अफगानिस्तान के लिए कॉन्टैक्ट ग्रुप में भारत सक्रिय भूमिका निभाएगा।
Afghan President Ghani said at the meeting that his country's prospects for becoming a platform for cooperation and connectivity are improving, and having formed a national consensus on peace, the country is firmly committed to political solution to the conflict with the Taliban.
The twin evils of terrorism and narcotics must therefore be confronted coherently, comprehensively and cooperatively. The first step in this process is to create a narrative of cooperation on the basis of win-win conception of Afghanistan as a platform for regional connectivity and cooperation, and then harness the Shanghai spirit to create the necessary action plans for regional cooperation.
The graph of India-China camaraderie, which has been moving north owing to the extensive efforts of both countries, got another boost when Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping met for the second time in 6 weeks. India and China, two Asian giants in the world economy, committed to further strengthen their trade ties in coming years.
President Xi Jinping said that this had been a very successful summit, that the discussions without agenda in a relaxed setting had allowed both leaders to discuss a number of issues, and he described the Wuhan summit as, quote-unquote, a new starting point in our bilateral relations. Prime Minister made a similar appraisal, a very positive appraisal. He described this, and I quote, as a milestone, unquote, in our relationship, one which would help in developing mutual understanding, one which would enhance mutual trust, and one which would take the relationship in a forward direction.
Despite a growing proximity between India and China in recent days, India, however, outrightly rejected the idea of Belt and Road Initiative as it passes through Indian territory which remains under illegal Pakistan occupation for 7 decades. Narendra Modi said India supports connectivity projects that are inclusive, transparent and respect territorial sovereignty, and expected others also to respect India's sovereignty.
India has long maintained that the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, a key part of the Belt and Road Initiative, passes through Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, which violates its territorial integrity. We have Mr. Kamar Raga, a political expert, to talk further on the issue. How do you analyze the strength of SCO as a grouping? Can it be considered one of the strongest blocs in today's times?
Of course, it has emerged ever since India has joined SCO. It has become a very powerful bloc because 3 big powers are part of it: India, China, and Russia. Then the other countries of the region, like Central Asian republics, they are very rich in resources, in energy resources and other minerals they have. So this is a grouping, almost 40% of the world population are living in this area. So it is a very powerful, and at the time, when European Union is having problem and other organizations are facing also problem, disunity you would see within the other groupings. So in this region, this Euro-Asia region, this is the most powerful bloc and which has a lot of influence not only in this region but other regions as well. Like India is having a big support in Africa. Similarly, Chinese are also having support in other countries as well. Russia is a very powerful country in terms of technology, in terms of military strength, and the modern technologies they have. So this group, becomes the most powerful, potent group in the world.
Thank you, Mr. Raga. Moving on to Pakistan's Sindh province, where a large number of indigenous Sindhi people are on a hunger strike against the enforced disappearances of political activists and intellectuals. Protests at various locations were also joined by the family members of missing persons as they demanded early release of their dear ones who are allegedly kidnapped by the security forces. We have a report.
A mass movement has gripped Pakistan's Sindh province as demand for early release of missing persons has intensified. Various political organizations and family members of the victims are holding hunger strike camps at various places including Karachi, Kotri, Mehrapur, Moro, Badin, Bhatoro and Pano Akhil, demanding safe release of missing persons. In an estimate, over 4,000 people have gone missing from Sindh province since 2011. Accusing the security forces for the enforced disappearances, the family members of the victims are protesting in Sindh by holding the pictures of the dear ones. The prominent of those missing are Akib Chandio, Kaleem Tunio and Khadim Hussain Ariju. The family members have asked the government to bring them in courts and prove their crime. At many hunger strike camps, the Sindh folk singers have also joined the movement to show their solidarity for the missing persons. The Sindh Bar Council also announced Black Day and full day hunger strike by taking serious note of substantial increase in the disappearances of the innocent citizens and inordinate delay in their recovery.
Despite massive protests and strikes, the federal and provincial governments are silent over the issue. It is evident that Pakistan's security agencies are behind this heinous crime, which needs international attention and condemnation. My colleague Ravi Khandelwal recently spoke to Dr. Hidayat Bhutto of World Sindhi Congress. Here are a few excerpts.
Bhutto Sahib, if we talk about the situation in Sindh is getting worse day by day. So how do you analyze the situation, the human rights situation, especially in Sindh province?
Basically, human rights situation in Sindh is getting worse and worse day by day, as you mentioned, and it's causing a lot of problem and atmosphere of fear in the Sindhi community. They are not only kidnapping people, they are extrajudicially killing people and ringing and making unknown telephone calls to the individuals whom they feel that they are talking about the human rights situation, and in the human rights defenders, political campaigners and journalists and a lot of bloggers, they are causing atmosphere of fear in Sindh, and they have started this operation since many years and is still going on. Almost every day, every week they are kidnapping and disappearing political activists.
It has been noticed that it's not only they are targeting the political activists in Sindh. The overall situation is not very bright there. Since Sindh generates 70% of the revenue for Pakistan, there's immense poverty, unemployment is there, the areas are underdeveloped. So, don't you believe there's also a human rights violations in the region?
Yes, there is definitely, because it's a wealthy province of Pakistan and produces 70%, even more than that, of the wealth of the Pakistan. Basically 70% of gas of the and we have got a lot of coal reserves, but in spite of that 75% of people are living below the poverty line, and it's Supreme Court's report that 80% of people, they are not getting water, clean water which is suitable for even animals, forget about the human beings. And 77 million people, school going children, are not going to go to school, and because of this problem there is a lot of diseases are happening in the society. Almost 25% people are suffering from hepatitis, tuberculosis, and these are waterborne diseases, and we think that this is a genocide of Sindhi people, and they are trying to genocide our people. Not only that, they are because of this CPEG project, they are grabbing our lands by force, and they are displacing Sindhi people, and there is no voice. There is complete blackout in the Pakistani media about the atrocities against Sindhi people. For example, Gorano Dam, on the Tharkol, they have displaced people and they are making a dam, and people are demonstrating against it, and there is a heroic struggle going on of the Sindhi people, but there is a complete blackout in Pakistani media. They have been asked not to publicize anything.
It has also been noticed that the minorities in Sindh are also facing persecution by Pakistan. They are being targeted, especially the Hindu girls, they are being converted into Islam. So what is the situation of the minorities at present?
It's again a very, very worse situation, because they think that Sindhi ideology or Sindhi even language, Sindhi poetry, Sindhi culture is a harmonious culture. and it respects, there is no difference between Hindus, Sindhis or any Christians on a religious basis in our Sindhi society. Never been. For example, there was blast on Kalandar Shahbaz Mazar in Sevan, which was, and there was Hindus and Muslims all together. For example, Sachal Sarmast, which is a very famous poet, Hindus and Muslims are buried together. This current situation, because they feel that there is a fear from the Sindhi culture, and they are attacking Sindhi Hindus mainly and Sindhi girls because they want them to coerce to leave their own homeland and their own country, and unfortunately there is hundreds and thousands of people who are leaving their motherland in a sorrow. But we think that still there is a struggle going on, and we will one day win, and we will bring them to their own motherland back.
Moving on to Afghanistan, wherein a historic turn of events, Taliban insurgents for the first time responded positively to the repeated benevolent offers made by the Afghan government, this time of ceasefire. The insurgents, however, declared only a 3-day ceasefire in response to 7-day of Kabul. The international community has welcomed the temporary truce and has hailed the Ghani government for its persistence in pursuing peace. A report.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. هموطنان روزه‌دار و ملت مسلمان و عظیم افغانستان.
President Ashraf Ghani, in another outreaching move to bring back peace to the country, announced a 7-day ceasefire from the 27th day of Ramadan to the 3rd day of Eid al-Fitr, the day which marks the end of Ramadan, the Islamic holy month of fasting. However, what triggered a wave of optimism in the country and around the world was a surprising and unprecedented reciprocation by Taliban, which also called for a 3-day ceasefire on Eid holiday. A political and strategic expert in New Delhi, who has closely been following the developments in Afghanistan, however, feels that it is just another trick of the Taliban, as it also needs public confidence for its own sustenance.
Ceasefire actually enables a sort of negotiation, and also ceasefire enables in terms of, because this is the month of Ramadan, as you know, the Eid is going to fall probably, on Saturday or something like that. So that actually provides space for the civilian population to celebrate it, because Taliban, like the Afghan government, also needs people's support. And if they continue with attacks and all, then obviously the people on whom they are actually depending will get alienated. So therefore, I think Ramadan cease offer will bring only temporary relief, because the Taliban does not recognize the Afghan government, and it does not want to have any talks with the Afghan government.
The Taliban are seeking to return the country to impose Islamic rule after the 2001 ouster by the US-backed troops. As per an estimated release by the United States, the extremists have gained ground since the withdrawal of a majority of international troops in 2014 and now controls more than 50% of the country. The US-backed Kabul government has relentlessly been making multi-pronged efforts to bring the Taliban to the negotiating table. Earlier, President Ghani has proposed legitimizing the Taliban as a political entity and releasing prisoners in an effort to bring them closer to ending the conflict. However, Taliban, which doesn't recognize the Kabul government, had not only outrightly rejected the offer, but launched an intensified spring offensive in order to topple the regime.
When you speak of result in terms of getting the Taliban to the negotiating table, or if you're looking at the results that by offer of peace and all, probably Taliban will be motivated to come to the negotiating table. Yes, it has not yielded any kind of results. But nevertheless, I do feel that other than that, I really do not see there is any other way to engage in talks with a group who actually, are engaged in large-scale violence in Afghanistan.
The atmosphere of peace didn't prevail for long, as a suicide bomber killed 13 people and wounded more than 25 at the entrance to Afghanistan's Rural Rehabilitation and Development Ministry in Kabul when employees were leaving for home. Islamic State, which has unleashed mayhem in Afghanistan in recent times, claimed responsibility for the attack. However, security officials say it was more likely a work of the Haqqani network, a group affiliated with the Taliban.
Infamous for its hypocrisy and duplicity, Pakistan pretends to be a supporter of Afghanistan's issues on global stages, while in reality, trains terrorists inside its own territory and launches them to create mayhem in Afghanistan. Moving on to Bangladesh, where Rohingya refugees are facing a tough time during the monsoon season. At least a dozen people have been killed in landslides and related incidents. Aid agencies have been warning of the potential for a humanitarian catastrophe over the coming months as heavy rains lash an area home to the world's largest refugee camp.
Landslides triggered by heavy monsoon rains have killed at least 12 people in and around Bangladesh border district of Cox's Bazar. One of the two Rohingya casualties in Cox's Bazar was a 2.5-year-old boy who died when a mud wall fell on him and his mother. The injured mother is in hospital. Another Rohingya man was killed as a tree weakened by rainfall fell on him. The United Nations said they feared an increase in extreme weather conditions could lead to more damage and loss of life for Rohingya Muslims living in camps as landslides and related incidents were triggered by pre-monsoon rain in southeast Bangladesh.
This is an early test for refugees and humanitarian agencies working to support the government of Bangladesh and the response efforts. Torrential rains and winds up to 70 kilometers per hour caused at least 89 reported incidents, including 37 landslides, causing several injuries and one confirmed fatality, a child. Nearly 2,500 refugee families, some 11,000 people in all, are affected. For us, this is now all hands on deck.
Nearly 29,000 people have been moved to new locations in advance of the monsoon, but the risk of a tragedy remains high. International aid agencies also said there was a big risk of an outbreak of waterborne diseases in the Rohingya camps in Cox's Bazar, where nearly 1 million people live mostly in shacks made of bamboo and plastic sheets that cling to steep denuded hills.
However, given the scope of the refugee population, the sheer size of the settlements and the challenging terrain, we fear that the extreme weather will cause further damage, destruction, and potential loss of life. Based on aerial mapping of the settlements, we estimate up to 200,000 refugees could be at risk of landslides and floods and still need to be moved to safer areas. Of this population, 41,000 are at high risk of landslides.
The number of Rohingya in Bangladesh has swelled since last August when an army operation in Myanmar following Rohingya insurgents' attacks on security forces prompted an exodus to Bangladesh.
Moving on, a painting exhibition aimed at promoting Indo-Nepal relations by interlinking countries' cultures was organized in Nepal's capital Kathmandu. Various painters from both countries showcased their creativity in Mithila Art Gallery. Have a look.
Painting showcased at Mithila Art Gallery in capital Kathmandu depict the daily activities of the people in Nepal and India in an attempt to bridge the cultural relations between the two neighbours. The Indian artists Mukesh Bijole and Mahavir Verma, whose works are on display at this exhibition in Nepal, are optimistic about the exhibition.
नेपाल एक समृद्ध देश है. हमें इंडिया से यहाँ आए, हमारी वहाँ की संस्कृति और यहाँ की संस्कृति हम चाहते हैं कि हमारी जो पेंटिंग है उसके माध्यम से हमारी बात हो.
Mithila painting is a style of painting prevalent in the Mithila region of Nepal and India's northern Bihar state. These paintings were traditionally created on walls of houses by women during special occasions such as marriages and birth ceremonies. India and Nepal enjoy age-old cultural ties and have deep-rooted linkages in the field of music, art and literature.
दोनों देशों को जोड़ने का तो बहुत बड़ा माध्यम है. यहाँ जितने भी लोग आए हैं उनसे बस यही चर्चा हो रही है कि हम अपनी संस्कृति के आदान प्रदान के माध्यम से जो संबंध प्रगाढ़ करते हैं वो माध्यम कोई दूसरा नहीं हो सकता, क्योंकि संस्कृति ही एक ऐसा माध्यम है जो आपको बिल्कुल प्रगाढ़ रूप से जोड़ती है.
These exhibitions not only promote cross-cultural understanding but also enhance the bilateral ties among nations. The week-long exhibition of about 20 paintings prepared by Indian artists will conclude on June 13.
Multiple joint programs are conducted both at the government level and the community level to further improve the people-to-people relation between the two countries. With that, we come to the end of this week's episode. See you next week. Take care and goodbye.
You're watching TAG TV. You're watching TAG TV.